Hey guys, it's Captain Forrest here. Today, I'm here with a death battle prediction video. I've got some friends on the channel, of course. We're going over Aizen versus Madara. So, I'm going to start off, of course, my friend Corin.
What is up, everyone? Corn O'Keefe back yet again. Thanks for having me back, Forrest. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is Beyond Forrest and my channel. How y'all doing?
It's a pleasure. So, I got my boy Kurai.
Yo, what's up, everyone? It's Lord Kirai, and I'm back here again.
I got my boy Benjamin.
Pleasure to be here.
And then I've got my boy, of course, Shinigami.
Hello everyone, this is Shinigami right here, currently known as the Aizen Savior for a Death Battle G1 prediction.
And last but not least, Berserker. Introduce yourself.
So, hello. First time being here. Hope can this be a nice video for you all to enjoy.
Alright, bet. So, of course, Benjamin and I guess Shinigami, they're gonna go ahead and cover Aizen's stuff. They're gonna cover his AP, speed, and hexes and all that good jazz. Then afterwards, Corin, he's gonna go ahead and touch upon some Madara stuff. He's gonna explain some Madara hexes, AP, speed, and all that jazz. And then we just give our thoughts from then on, for the video. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave the mic on to Benjamin.
Yeah, so I'll be covering both Aizen's AP and speed. So to start off with, we have some simple stuff. Aizen is consistently stated as being transcendent to all Shinigami and Hollows. This would obviously include Yamamoto himself, who, when he entered Bankai, it was stated 2 times, Yamamoto himself being one of them, and the other one being Unohara. Who would be the second oldest of the Shinigami, being one of the original Goten members, so she would have knowledge, having fought in the original Blood War against Yuha, having seen his Bankai before, and both state that if he does not end the battle quickly, they would therefore destroy all of Soul Society. This would most likely be referring to the planet itself. Lack of context would make it a bigger claim, obviously, to say it's referring to the whole universe. The time itself is, during the short battle, we have a time frame of around 5 minutes, being Yua's time limit of being in Soul Society at that point. And Yamamoto, by merely existing while holding back, mind you, as he is consistently shown during that battle to do everything in his power to actually not destroy the Soul Society. And that is still not enough, that his mere presence is still going to do that. Aizen would obviously, again, upscale. He transcends all those Shinigami. Even in normal base, he was able to kinda swap hands with Shikayama a little. A Bankai being around a 10 times multiplier. So he's still in the same league as Yama, even in base. So it would be very consistent that in his higher forms he would logically just be far superior. Just basing on multipliers as well, it's even more supported, as a transcendence or a full-on transformation as he goes should be superior to a holification. He considers holifications himself absolutely useless, and he was kind of offended when Ichigo assumed that he had actually undergone holification. This would imply again that the transcendents themselves are superior. So based on multipliers, statements, and just the feat from his base self, it would be pretty consistent to say he is above Yamamoto. And again, this is also supported by, after he took the Mugetsu from Ichigo, he was obviously defeated, damaged, and then he goes on to start evolving further and fusing to his Sanpakuto, and he states that he will now be like Ichigo was. And then he corrects himself by saying no, he will reach further, even higher heights. And the Mugetsu technique was stated by a guidebook that it is far superior to anything in the verse of that time, which would again include Yamamoto's Bankai. that is his AP. It's pretty consistent, like raw, planetary at least, with Yamamoto's. You could argue higher by a few other things. If you want to assume that Gremmy's imagination is based on raw power, you could argue Galaxy based on Grammy creating one. However, that would be an assumption based on like if his imagination scales to raw Ryatsu or power in this case, or if it's basically just what he can think of. However, it is confirmed that he did create it, so if you want to say that it's based on raw power, you could say Yamamoto would upscale, as Yuha himself blatantly says that no Quincy except himself could actually control Yama's Bankai, being it that it's too powerful. So that is his AP, just a fair end being around planetary, with the higher end being around the galaxy levels. His speed should be FTL plus, or pretty consistently shown that he should scale above beings like Renji, who has a speed feat of being around 22 times speed of light. He's also, we actually have other feats that also support this. He himself in base having a feat of around 11.75 times the speed of light. All of this requires an assumption that the basic Getsuga Tensho is light speed, which would be supported by multiple statements that Zeros themselves are actual light. Ichigo obviously should upscale from them, as he's fought the top tier of the Espada, such as Okiora. He was able to kind of just slap away Yami, who is stated as the strongest Espada. These being the top dogs of the Hollows at the time, of course, would make sense that they, even if you don't want to say the fodder Menos themselves are the ones using the light speed Zeros, it would be consistent that higher level would do that. So I would say it's a fair assumption to say Ichigo's Getsuga are at least light speed, making the calc pretty valid, and is further supported by even weaker characters having higher speeds as well. And this is a shilling Aizen that did this as well. So those are his pretty fair stats, I would say. Again, although it is fair to mention, if you want to again assume the Grammy feat, you could get him to MFTL Plus based on the speed required to create the galaxy in the time Grammy did it. And another alternative would be the amount of time it took him to send his imagination to a distance equivalent to a galaxy. So that is for Aizen stats. Shinigami, you can go on with his hacks if you want.
Okay, now it's time for Aizen's hacks, and oh man, this is gonna be a long list. So for starters, obviously as a soul, Aizen has soul manipulation, non-physical interaction, as he can touch things on a spiritual level, durability negation, as he's attacking your soul directly, resistances to soul manipulation, and more, like how he can like stop these same spiritual attacks, like how he can stop Ichigo's Zanpakuto with a finger, or how he can no diff all the Espada in just his base state. And we have layers arguments, like how the Sokyoku is stated to have like 36 million Zanpakuto, and Ichigo and Shikai destroyed it, or how the Arankars are stated to have like 100 million souls or something, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or if a low end, like 20 layers at least, because Aizen now should be at the hierarchy of the spirit class, which basically, the higher the number goes in the spirit class, the more potency in soul manipulation you gain. Class 20 being the lowest, and class 3 being at least captain class, according to the new chapter. So, yeah, massive amounts of layers for Aizen's soul hacks alone. He also has pseudo flight, as Shinigami can fly by creating like footholds of reishi. For example, like what Ichigo did in the first arc when he gained traction on the air itself. Zangetsu states this later, and Ichigo confirms that's what he's doing. Aizen can also sense souls very far away. In fact, it could give him cosmic awareness because he can sense Ichigo and Yuha fight in the Soul Palace, which is a separate dimension from the Soul Society, whilst he is in the Soul Society. He can also sense Yuha's Reiatsu disappearing whilst he's in the Muken, which is described as a separate dimension according to Unohana. And he sensed the events from Can't Fear Your Own World whilst he's in Muken again. So, this is going to be really useful stuff against Madara, just to let y'all know. Aizen also has a sort of a sixth sense. Basically, what this allows him is that he can see on like a spiritual level. It's not like it's like a sixth sense of sorts. For example, the way this was used was like when Ichigo had his normal eye slashed, he was able to see with this same sixth sense. Shunsui explains it that you will see it on screen most likely. Now for his main abilities. His Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu. Kyoka Suigetsu is a mind hack. It manipulates all your senses, including your sense of sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch, as well as the extrasensory perceptions and the sixth sense. Because when the captains went to fight against Aizen, they couldn't tell the difference between Aizen and Momo, so Aizen just switched his place with Momo and negged all of them. And Aizen has used it on a versatility of degrees, including how he masked his escape when was in the 100-year flashback, how he masked the massacre of Baragon's forces, or how he was able to mask the deaths of the Central 46. He basically made the Central 46 seem like they were alive, though they weren't, whilst at the same time creating an elaborate doll that convinced Unohana, the best healer that the Soul Society has, to think that it's his real body. She even claims later that it was an elaborate doll. And this is all in his base state. In the war arc, Aizen's mind hacks his Zanpakuto is now fused with his body. So, conventional weaknesses like how in his base state you needed to look at the Shikai release in order for you to be under it, well, now you don't. You now just need to look at Aizen's body. Other weaknesses that Kyoka Suigetsu had, like how you need to touch the blade in order to escape it before it's released, doesn't seem to exist anymore because Yuha tried it a lot of the times and it didn't work. He was still caught under it. So those weaknesses most likely don't exist anymore. It's even implied to even got stronger, and shown through feats like how Aizen was able to manipulate Yuha's perception of time. He made the little talk they had seem like it lasted way longer than it did. Or how he manipulated Yuha looking into the future. So that's also going to be useful because the Almighty allows Yuha to basically look into every single future in existence. He can look into all the futures, as he states. And now, for the layers, you can argue a shit ton of layers with this. You can argue Aizen upscales from Shinji's Bankai because he upscales from Shinji's Shikai, and the Shikai is implied to be more powerful than the Bankai. And you can argue that the Bankai alone has trillions of layers because it can mind hacks 10,000 Arankars, and an Arankar is stated to have around 100 million souls again in their bodies. So holy shit, in just its base state, you can argue 1 trillion layers. Whoa, that's just to give you an idea, our current population is 7.8 billion people the last time I checked. So, this is some useful shit now to keep in mind in the base. And this is, again, just his base state. Speaking of, his Zanpakuto contains, has, a BFR technique where basically Aizen can like send you to the Soul Society, so he could just end battles with like a BFR, assuming you like don't have something like instant transmission and just escape it. Aizen also has abilities that amplify his stats, including Shimpo, which basically allows him to move really fast in the battlefield. He also has techniques like being able to create doppelgangers, and he can also switch his place with like some object, like you know how like Naruto has the substitution jutsu? Aizen can do something like that. For example, how Byakuya switched his current position with his captain's cloak. So that's going to be really useful as well. Now for Aizen's immense assortment of Kido. Yeah, let's do over Kido. So we have the Bakudos, which include paralysis inducement via like Bakudo 1, 4, I think 30, 61, 62, 63, and 79, I think. They induce paralysis as according to the data books via like summoning like 6 rods of light and just pinning you, 60 for 61, or 62, and how they like they have this rod and they just throw it and it multiplies itself like 100 times. As shown with Ichibei, a master Kido can like control how many appear at once. Like Ichibei made 12 appear at once, so that's also going to be really useful to keep in mind. There's also free stealing Kido that Aizen can do. There's one that like summons these like 5 steel whatever things they are, 5 steel pillars is according to the data books, and they seal you. There's also Bakudo 99 part 1 and 2 that also are stated to seal you as according to Bleach Souls. But now we go into the Hados, which are actually going to be really useful. There's multiple fire manipulation based Kido. There's like Hado 31 to 33, then 73, which is basically stated to be 33 times 2, and Hado 96, which, by the way, you can argue that Aizen can most likely spam Hado 96 because Yuha implies Yamamoto could have healed his arm after he used Hado 96, so you could technically argue with Aizen's regeneration capabilities that he can just spam that shit. Like, you could low-key argue that. And then we have lightning manipulation Kido via Hado 4, 11, like requiring something to conduct it, like something metal.
So yeah, getting to Madara Uchiha. So one of the very first things we see from Madara, one of his most iconic showings right off the bat, was when he went up against the entire Shinobi Alliance and in the process summoned giant meteors from the sky. Impressive feat when calced, because there's calcs that can put it anywhere from country up to the multi-continent level ranges very easily. And it gets better from here, folks, because we actually do know Madara, he actually upscales from the Akatsuki, right? He would be able to dominate them, and these Akatsuki members are actually able to contend with Tailed Beast. They're able to actually contend with him, whether it be with chakra, their hacks, etc., their power. They're able to actually contend with these Tailed Beasts, and Madara is just superior to them in these regards. He would be able to dominate them. He would upscale from them. And this is impressive because these Tailed Beasts, right, even some of the lower ends have large island, country, and even some of them have, the stronger ones have multi-continent level calcs, such as the 8 Tails and the 9 Tails himself, Kurama. So, right off the bat, easy to see Madara not doing too bad for himself. Later on, we actually know that he absorbs the 10 Tails, becoming stronger than Jubito, surpassing Jubito himself. And this is cool because Jubito was able to create the God Tree, and this is impressive because it actually has really high into multi-continent, even moon level calcs. And I believe I've even seen small planetary to planetary stuff as well for some of these god tree creating feats from both Madara and Jubito. So if you want to consider that added on for extra support and evidence, you could do that. But even besides that, right, for even more supporting evidence, this 10-tailed beast at one point was actually compared to the size of a small planet in terms of its chakra size and its size itself. At the time, it was actually like compared to a small planet. And Madara absorbed this. So just to add on extra consistency. So it gets even better because he would go on to fight Six Paths Naruto and Rinnegan Sasuke. This is impressive because this is when they obtained half the power of Hagoromo, aka Sage of the Six Paths. Now, if we all know, Sage of the Six Paths and his brother created a moon and lifted it into the sky with their own power. This has multiple calcs, getting anywhere from moon, moon plus, small planet, even full-on planetary. So Madara was able to continue with these two dudes. And on top of that, to add on even more consistency, a little more support and evidence for you badasses, we do know that half of the Nine Tails was able to fuel the Shinobi Alliance and give them 3 times the chakra of Kakashi Sensei himself, which is impressive because we actually do know in the movie known as The Last, a group of ninja, pretty decent group, not as much inherently as the Shinobi Alliance that Naruto fueled with half the Nine Tails. That's what we're getting at, though. That's why it's impressive, because this group of Shinobi was able to use their chakra, and it was going to be able to fuel this cannon that was able to teleport away the moon and destroy it. So that's even more supporting evidence for this type of scale, for the moon, small planet, planetary scale. And Naruto was able to fuel the Shinobi Alliance with half that Nine Tails chakra, with over 3 times the amount of chakra that Kakashi himself would have normally. And again, Madara, with a much more powerful Naruto and Sasuke in the form of Sage of Six Paths Naruto and Rinnegan Sasuke. So, right off the bat, folks, it's very easy to see Madara has easily multi-continent level stuff, like country multi-continent in his lower showings, lower states. His higher states, he gets even higher forms, right? He gets to those casual, blatant moon, moon plus, small planet, or even planetary ranges extremely and utterly casually. So, now, there is some other stuff to consider for AP. Possibly high-end, possible wank. We'll bring it up because why not? So, you could definitely argue, you could say that Madara downscales to a decent degree from Kaguya. Pretty iffy, but, Kaguya has arguments for large planet, large star, solar system, although little context to that as well. But again, if you really want to go there, there's wiggle room with it either way. I wouldn't inherently go that route myself on a consistent basis, but yeah. So yeah, there's higher end stuff for Madara to downscale from if you really want to try it. Overall consistency, again, moon plus, casually to small planet, planetary ranges, extremely casually. And in terms of speed, we get over to speed. Now, this is important because we actually know the Raikage that Madara would scale to or above inherently and very casually and just consistently altogether. He is directly stated in the data book that he throws his lariat at the speed of light. He moves at the speed of light himself. Himself moves at the speed of light itself. Yeah. So Madara scales, upscales very easily, even in lesser forms. Again, He himself obtains the light fang technique, which, you know, it's a technique that moves at the speed of light. Pretty good, pretty good. You know, and we also have just multipliers to add on to that. And again, easy, just light speed stuff. We even have lesser ninjas like samurais from even much before, you know, the full on war arc, who like are stated to like slash at the speed of light. Just more supporting evidence, right? We have Darui, his lasers, arguably light speed, reflect off water, stuff like that. You know, so yeah, light speed, FTL stuff, easily, especially when you get to higher forms. He's definitely reaching faster than light. If you got multipliers, you know, you have some 5-time multipliers, some 10-time multipliers here and there. You got stacks like that. So yeah, FTL plus stuff, you could even argue. Pretty consistent, even early on, even before the war. Pretty consistent stuff. So we move on to hacks. Now, Madara, he pretty good hacks. So obviously, wood clones. He would be able to do wood clones. Pretty freaking potent stuff there. He has his perfect Susanoo. Really durable, really potent. Just adds on even more potency. He has his Limbo clones, which one of my favorites. His Limbo clones, pretty much invisible clones. They exist in a separate dimension, right, from that of like the normal physical dimension, so to speak. They were able to like fight on par in terms of AP with Naruto Shadow clones from the 6 Paths mode Shadow clones, to be precise. And they're on par with Madara in that ballpark as a whole. So he can even summon like deadly Shadow clones or Limbo clones. Yes, Limbo clones. Mind me, that are able to be, you know, invisible to like from normal standards, you know, from normal perception, you know, you could say, pretty much in a different separate dimension, technically, essentially. So yeah, that's going to be very helpful. He would also have pretty powerful mind hacks like Tsukiyomi. Now Tsukiyomi, it's actually stated in, I believe, a guidebook that it actually induces like a separate universe, like a separate like mental based space time, like just like mentally into like the mind of the victim, and it can actually induce, you know, torture and trauma for days on end in the mind, like within the mind. And even like an entire lifetime within like a picosecond, I believe it was stated. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone recalls, but yeah, I believe it's from the guide. And yeah, so that if you go with that, it was for like Itachi directly, but again, Madara can do Tsukiyomi. So there's that to consider. That would be pretty potent, pretty deadly if you go with the full description. However you choose to interpret it, it's still pretty powerful. It can just mess with your overall emotions, your senses, all of that. It's pretty crazy. And with that, we also know Madara, in return, has layers of mind hacks resistance. Even just a basic Sharingan grants the user basic like resistance to like genjutsu, mind hacks, stuff like that, etc. And as like the Sharingan grades go up, each different grade, you know, the higher state of Sharingan, you know, the higher forms of it, you could say. It just adds on even more layers, more potency. The Rinnegan, Madara would have Rinnegan, Rinne Sharingan, you know, the third eye, if you want to go that route, would he be even stronger? All that good stuff, more potency all around. If you want to go if you really want to like argue, there's some transmutation arguments for Madara as well, some pretty good stuff for that. And yeah, overall, Madara is kind of a legit badass. He's also kind of a genius in his own verse, in his own right. Very tactical in his own right, very strategic, very skillful. Heck, this dude, again, when he first appeared, he was finessing like the like the entire Shinobi Alliance. It was funny. Like just completely finessing them, just rodding all of them, rodding them to the ground, just skillfully, tactically, phenomenally. So I'll give my overall final thoughts later, but this pretty much gives the gist of Madara for the time being. I'm going to pass the mic over to whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, I'll go next. So, I'll give my thoughts on who I think wins more often than not. So like, Madara, like I do know a little bit about Madara. As Korin has mentioned, he's mentioned a good fair bit about Madara's AP speed and hexes. Of course, like, with the Sharingan, of course, it also gives you like precognition. So it allows you to stay steps ahead against your opponent. I think there's a good few layers into it. I think there's like 16 layers. I can't remember, but there's a lot of layers for like his precognition. So like just any like Uchiha who has like the access to the Sharingan, they have like inherent precognition. It's even been demonstrated even by like Sōsuke. He's used it as well too. I know they have many different types of special jutsus, like the fire style, like fireball jutsu, or the majestic hurricane, which is like a giant fiery explosion, which Madara has used, which is pretty impressive. Of course, like Madara does carry like utensils and tools, like shurikens. Of course, he can infuse his chakra with his like shurikens and like knives and impressive like objects that he carries with him. He's very smart, definitely, when it comes to tactics. He's definitely ready, has the prowess, especially in combat. Just as Korin mentioned, like he completely embarrassed like the Shinobi Alliance, like all like the fodder, like cannon fodder, like characters. They all got literally embarrassed and bullied. Also with like the Sharingan, there is the I believe it's called the Izanagi. It was demonstrated by like Danzo, when every time Sasuke supposedly killed Danzo, every time he got killed, he just sacrificed one of the eyes to just like reality warp him back to existence. So it just brings him back to life. So that is a method he could use in combat if his life is at danger. He usually uses this as like a last resort. I can't remember what the name of the like one of the Akatsuki members were, but when I think it was like when he got like off guarded, I believe he like used it, because obviously it was like he was like in a really dangerous situation where he was gonna get killed. But typically in character, he doesn't just use it right off the bat if like the situation doesn't call for it. Like he's not reckless with it, like how Danzo was, when Danzo was literally just burning through him, because obviously he had collected over a bunch of like the Uchiha eyes, and he was just like blitzing and blazing through it and just pissing away his chakra. So Madara is just a lot more tactical with his eye usage. So he knows not to like burn himself out or overexert himself. So it's just a lot of crazy mind hacks. Just a lot of ways to like especially at the Genjutsu, a lot of ways to like pretty much just disassemble and pretty much debilitate you on a mental level. So he has many like ways to like deal with his opponents through those means. Now with Aizen, Shinigami did go over a good few of some of the hacks he could use, but of course some of the things that I feel that like Shinigami mentioned, like in character, because we have to go off in character, I don't think he's going to be using half of the stuff. Like I don't think Aizen's going to resort to most of them, because they're very like either situational or he doesn't start off with it in character. This fight's pretty close. Like they definitely both have like ways to like use mind hacks against each other, especially like layers and stuff. It's very close. You could definitely argue like Aizen possibly taking victory and stuff like that. It's very very close. You could argue it being 50-50, but obviously that depends on if you like look into like the layers and who has the better quantification in AP and speed. Personally, I'm gonna lean a little bit with Madara. I do think like he has some crazy potent stuff that I think he would use more in character more often than not. Aizen is a bit tricky. Like he is hacksy, especially like I do think he would probably use he'd use his mind hexes, especially the one that affects all your senses. But as mentioned, Madara has resistance to stuff like that naturally with the Sharingan. But if it comes down to in character, I don't know if Death Battle are going to like incorporate that, because they're a bit weird with that. They tend to fluctuate or sometimes I'll mention like out of character arguments, because if it's like out of character, then things get, the matchup is very different, vastly different. There's many possibilities you could argue. But yeah, I think they're going to use probably some low ends. Of course, it's Death Battle, so they're not going to use any like crazy scaling. So I personally just have to lean a little bit more with Madara. But hey, if Aizen wins, I'm not mad. I like both combatants. Both like one of my favorite villains. They both just built different. So yeah, if anyone else wants to give any thoughts, I mean, Kirai, you want to give any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna give my thoughts on this battle of who I think who wins, and actually like touch a bit more upon Madara too as well. Also too for Madara too as well. There's also, he has regeneration too as well. He has that as this man was able to take on an literal eight gate might guy, and was able to tank hits from him and literally just regenerate from that. And goes to show this is an 8-gate guy, which the 8 gates is said before even in early Naruto to even like rival the power of a Hokage. So there's that. So there's that too as well. Another thing too as well, to when it comes to like Madara too as well, like what Korn said, he has like layers into like mind hacks. He can also paralyze people as well, and even his wood clones alone can also paralyze and also mind hacks too as well. So Madara during this probably during the whole fight is just going to be having wood clones, and Aizen more likely is gonna, and even in character, Aizen is more likely gonna start off fighting a wood clone, like probably during most of the whole entire fight, and if Aizen manages to defeat one, then the real Madara is just gonna end up coming out and just and stepping in, and this is just gonna be like a Madara that's already ready to go, while Aizen could be tired out. Another thing to also mention too as well, to like during all this, this was an endo Madara, in which it is known that endo, when it's like when you're in the endo state, you are slightly weaker. In this state. So and then if Death Battle were to even bring up stuff when he was alive, he could be even higher. But it really wasn't mentioned within the anime of how quantifiable of how strong he was too as well. Okay, now for like some other stuff too as well, he has Susanoo, just like also what Korn mentioned too as well. And also something else to mention is something that's in the data books as well, to which it says like the Nine Tails itself, just the Nine Tails can reduce the world to ashes. So that's even more consistency for Madara's AP argument too as well. And yeah, Madara, then mostly Korn went over like all of like Madara's like main abilities and hacks, his speed and everything and all that little jazz to it. Now for who I think will win in this battle is really determined of what Death Battle uses. Because in reality, this battle can go really either way via Death Battle. And this is why I'm saying this is via Death Battle, because Death Battle can either bring up some low ends for a character. They can easily put both of them at planetary, or they can scale like one higher and then just give another one like loads of hexes. So that's why I said this. That's why I'm saying it really depends, because like I said before, this battle could like start out in character wise of Aizen just fighting a wood clone during the whole entire fight, and then once he like Aizen transforms, then the real Madara is probably gonna come out and also transform too as well. So that's what I'm saying. It really depends on death battle standards and where they put these characters at. So it can go either way. For me personally, if we're actually talking about who will actually win, like outside of death battle, of course Aizen will win. But in death battle standards, I'm who I want to win the most is Madara, because I do favor Madara more than Aizen, but I do like both of them. But like in death battle standards, I think they'll give Aizen the win, and that's just my thoughts.
Okay,
Alright.
I guess I'll go.
Yeah,
Or
sure,
I
you
was
can.
current ones. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
go ahead. You and Shinigami
yeah.
can go, and then Berserker, and then I'll go after y'all.
Okay. Yeah. That works. So yeah, my thoughts is I agree with a lot of what Kurai said there. It can depend a lot of what Death Battle actually decides to use, as it's pretty consistently shown with them that they can either go with weird scaling, they can go like with what most people would agree with, and all that. So depending on what they use, the battle can obviously be very different in the end. I think probably Aizen's most useful thing is just the Hogyuku in general. The Hogyuku itself is like, well, Aizen in character, he himself doesn't use it a lot of what he does have, unless he's actually forced into doing it. The Hogyuku itself will just act on actually to preserve Aizen's life as its master. It doesn't really care what he thinks unless he himself obviously wants to, has that desire, which in the past was to just have an equal, which currently he doesn't have that weakness anymore. But the biggest problem for Aizen would be, will he decide to use something? Because the Hogyuku, well, can help him regenerate, it can heal him, obviously, and it can obviously evolve him forcibly or just naturally with time, which is seen with, like, for example, the monster form, where it's a painful transformation that's pretty quick, or with, like, the Chrysalis to the third form, where it took, like, a whole fight with Kisuke until he actually just came out of the cocoon as, like, an actual evolution. It is weird how it would decide whether or not it will even act upon it, since it didn't seem to do anything with, like, Yuha. Obviously, Yuha was kind of like slapping him around very badly. So you could say maybe they didn't want to heal him or help him because Yuha is like, he's technically what this Hogyuku would be coming from at this point, since he absorbed like the Soul King, and the Hogyuku's power is literally just like coming from a nail of the Soul King. So maybe that had a hand in it. But I would say it's safe to say that after he doesn't at least like evolve from it as much. Maybe it helps him, like it obviously keeps him in the game, heals him, and it can act on like preserve. I can't say the word, but it will try preserving Aizen in the game. Aizen might just make a dumb mistake before he actually pulls out his true stuff. It's mentioned multiple times that Aizen is very just like someone that likes flexing. He prefers just using raw power, and then he will, like, if he's either bored or if he's forced into it, he will pull out like Kyoka and just start trolling you. In this case, like, Aizen's Kyoka at best, it does have anime stuff. Whether or not they will use it depends. But in the manga, I would have to disagree with what Shin said about like the layer stuff. As I would say it didn't even affect Yuha fully. It just caught him off guard with the Yuha obviously being caught before he even had the Almighty. And then he was just stuck under it continuously, is how I interpret that. and then the moment he realized he was under it, he broke out. Obviously, that is just my interpretation of that, and I know Shinigami has a different interpretation, which is valid. So I don't no shade on him. I'm just mentioning how I interpret that. So I don't think that's like a valid layer feat. That is like a main one I disagree with him on. The other one being the Shinji one, but I know that like yeah, it's arguable based on Shinji's wording that his Bankai is like less effective than his Shikai. You could say this could mean power. However, I again interpret this as just meaning like due to the ability of the Bankai being that it changes friend to foe. Obviously, not as useful in a battle. If you go into a battle, you can't like, oh, I want to change my ally to make them want to kill me. Wouldn't be the most useful thing there. So the Shikai is just way better in many ways, which is how I interpret what he said. Now, based on what I would say wins, Madara has a lot of ways to do this. He could go around with putting Aizen under it. The Hogyuku itself might be able to help him out. The Hogyuku, I'm not sure if Madara would know anything about the Hogyuku. Aizen might tell him. However, he only told like Ichigo because he's actually like basically Ichigo's dad. He just had to flex on like, yeah, I'm your dad. Show everything there, and obviously, if he gets offended, he will start like talking, just trying to show that he's actually superior. Perfect example being when Ichigo assumed he had gone under holification, he just started like, no, this is what I'm doing. He had to go and like explain what is happening because he got that offended. So he might do that because just like Aizen, Madara does shit talk at times. He might shit talk Aizen, force Aizen to like try having a shit talk battle, which unironically is probably how the battle would start. Them just talking to each other and like trying to shit talk the other to victory. In terms of like hacks, I would say Madara would use his more. Aizen, again, he's a raw power fighter and will use other stuff if necessary. Most of the abilities he even uses, like when it comes to Kido, he prefers 90, Hado 90 or Korohitsugi. That seems to be his favorite. He uses it like all the time. And then against Yuha, he pulled out the 99 because he literally needed everything he could to just touch Yuha. In the end, it didn't matter, and Yuha just slapped it away. But he does pull out if necessary, he would pull out those things. But I don't see him starting off with them or using them quick enough for the battle to end. I think it's more likely that he either loses before he pulls them out or he wins with something else. So I don't think a lot of the abilities would even be used there. For Madara, again, he uses the Rinnegan. Depends on which version, of course. As the Yubi, he uses more of like Limbo, the Yubi abilities such as Truth-Seeking Orbs. While in like base, he uses like Wood Clones. He used the absorption of the Rinnegan more. So just like Aizen, their styles of fighting changes when they transform. So that could be an interesting see. Would they start off in base in that battle, or are they gonna start off transformed? If it's out of character, obviously it might change, but in character, I see Aizen might win, but Madara could end up winning. Izanagi is a very useful thing. Aizen would basically have to kill him 3 times before Madara kills him once. Even if the Hogyuku can bring him back, it is questionable how long this would take. Which is why I say it is debatable, and it's probably a very fun match. While I don't like the matchup itself, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this would end up going. And while I do want Aizen to win, I will admit that either could win, but I would have to edge it a little with Aizen. Whether this is like unconscious bias or just how I feel it would go, I don't know, but that's my opinion on this.
Okay. Uh,
I guess it's
I
mine.
guess this is my turn now, right?
I guess it's my turn.
So, first of all, I kind of noticed. I'm not sure if like I kind of noticed that we practically did not bring up stamina, but Kuri kind of mentioned it in passing about how Aizen probably would be tired out when fighting Madara's wood clones, so they kind of just reminded me that we did not bring up that stat at all. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, I pretty much agree with what Corin and Benjamin said on regards to their characters. As in, like, Benjamin was talking about Aizen, and Corin was talking about Madara, same with Kurai. I will have to agree that it can depend on either way, it all depends on how Screw Attack decides to do the fight. And as for who I think would win, I'd say it's like um I I'd say it's a 50-50. It can obviously edge out with like either Madara at times, but I do think that Aizen would have a lot of advantage, mostly thanks to the Hogoku. Just like the Hogoku being a factor is way too much. So I honestly would say it. I will give it to Aizen, but I can see a Madara winning a lot. So that's my thought. As my thoughts on this. So on to the next one.
Alright, my turn, I suppose. For who I think would personally win, I do agree with like the assessments of their characters. Um, Aizen is definitely has some guard lowering weaknesses, like how he lowered his guard when like looking at Yamamoto and like gave Yamamoto a free shot at him, or how he like fought U-Haul was down for the count and then just turned his back on him and like got off guarded again. Madara is the same deal. Whether or not it's to a greater extent, it's like what? I don't know. But he also has these guard lowering weaknesses where like he's there like oh yeah, I'm just gonna like blast around with like the 10 tails, I'm just gonna experiment a little bit. And Obito is there like, dude, you're a child, alright? So depending on like who's gonna make the stupid decision first, it depends on who's gonna do it first. But for who I think would win, this could be unconscious bias or my numerous talks with Cyber that I've been having lately. But I'm gonna give like the slight edge to Aizen. My primary reasons are because of like Hogyoku. Yeah, the Hogyoku being a factor in this fight, as Assassin mentioned, is way too much. The Hogyoku evolved Aizen to the point that not only he's beyond the limits of a Shinigami and Hollow, but he also became resistant to like all the methods of execution the Soul Society had. And a lot of these methods of execution included like Rose's Bankai, which like makes illusions so real that they become literally physical. So you could argue some mind hacks resistances of that, or how there's some existence erasure like Yamamoto's Bankai. So you could argue that Aizen's resistant to truth-seeking orbs. So yeah, like the Hogyoku being a factor to begin with is like way too much. And Aizen seemingly still has it because he adapted whilst in the Mukin and sealed and gained some resistances to the seals. So there's definitely that to consider. Now, how Death Battle will do it, yeah, again, it's up to us. I heard that they might be like a continuation of 1 minute melee, but I don't know. But if they start off like based, it would be kind of interesting. But once the Hogyoku starts becoming a factor, I'm not seeing Madara winning this one. The only one I can see him is like maybe outlast Aizen with like Izanagi. Aizen has no definitive counter to that one. But then the problem becomes who's gonna last longer. Madara has like what? Last time I checked, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time I checked, he had 24 hours worth of stamina, scaling to Naruto, which is pretty good. But then we have Aizen scaling to Ichigo, and Ichigo can fight Aizen, then fight Aizen again, then fight Gin, and continue to fight Gin, and then fight Tensei Zangetsu non-stop for 3 months straight, and then do some more fighting. So, we're talking 3 months versus 24 hours. And if I remember correctly, Izanagi lasts for 5 minutes, and Madara has 3 eyes that he can use this, so 15 minutes in total. So it's not adding much. So Madara's only viable win con, Izanagi, is just delaying the inevitable of Aizen's impending victory. Now, once again, if they start off in base to base, it could go either way. Aizen is very versatile, but he's also more of a raw power fighter. But Madara tries to be very versatile with his hacks. And once Hogyoku comes into play, I can't see Madara winning. And if we're talking high-end shit for both of them, yeah, Galaxy level character versus a large star level character. That's my overall conclusions.
Alright. That's it. I have nothing else to say.
All right. I'll just give my quick final, my thing real quick on who I think wins. And then, so for overall, I think Madara, it does kind of depend. Right? I think Madara wins, though. Let's say outside of Death Battle, for example, I would say if we're sticking with the planetary stuff for both, like the multi-continent moon, planetary stuff for both, FTL stuff for both, whatever. I would actually say for Madara, yeah, he has enough to counter what Aizen can do, and he has what it takes to handle Aizen. I would actually lean more towards that route myself. And yeah, sure, I will say this. I agree with Bleach cosmology, being universal plus, I even agree with some characters scaling to it, Soul King, for example, maybe a couple others, but it is contentious on whether or not Aizen scales to that higher stuff, like Uni and stuff. But if you scale into Galaxy, multi-Galaxy, sure, I hear that's, possible. And yeah, obviously I can say, yeah, that one shot's even wanked Madara at large star or solar. And I do actually find the universal stuff for Bleach to be a little more convincing at the end of the day, a little more concrete. Now, again, the only contentious part I have with it is whether or not Aizen scales to the full-on uni stuff. So, again, if we do stick with, if we do go with the planet route, Lightspeed, they're saying they're in comparable tiers. I would say Aizen has what it takes to lose more often than not. I'd probably go with Madara, say he wins. But same with Death Battle, honestly. If they're going with the moon planetary stuff, relativistic FTL stuff, I see them having Madara win more often than not. And yeah, other than that, also I wanted to bring up, with the true seeking orbs, real quick, that there's actually arguments for existence erasure for the true seeking orbs, which is very unique, interesting argument for those in its own right. So if that gets applied, if the argument gets applied, if it turns out they use it, pretty deadly stuff. True seeking orbs are pretty versatile, pretty unique in their own right. Anyways, so yeah, I just think overall Madara is going to win more often than not in the Death Battle. I'd say outside of the Death Battle, definitely depends a little more, but I may lean more towards Madara regardless, more often than not. If Aizen does win, that's fine too. Again, I like Naruto and Bleach, the series as a whole, equally. I do like Madara more as a character than Aizen a little more, right? But I like the series themselves equally. So, I mean, even regardless of that, even if I didn't, if like Aizen won, that's fine, right? I just want both characters to get justice. That's what I asked for at the end of the day. I want to see some entertainment, good animation, justice to both sides, credit to the verses, the authors of the verses, all that good stuff. So yeah, my final thoughts: Madara more often than not. Looking forward to the death battle. Anyone else have any final thoughts?
Well, hope you all enjoyed this video and enjoyed this prediction. And we'll all see you later after the whole death battle. So say goodbye, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.
Fuck your mom.
Good night.
Bye.